Good morning, all, and welcome to our webinar, The Impact of AI Clinical Avatars on User Engagement in Healthcare. I'm Mark, and I work for DG Solutions. I'm joined today by Jana, Hayden, and Satish. Jana works for DG Solutions. Hayden and Satish work for Vituri, health tech solution provider. In this session, we're going to have a look at how clinical AI avatars are being used to improve user engagement in healthcare. We're going to have a look at a simple explanation of what AI is, explore some of the opportunities AI is bringing to the healthcare sector. We're looking at a product called Vituri, and how this AI-powered user engagement tool is working and is currently being deployed in different locations. And we'll have a sort of quick look at some challenges AI presents, and we'll finish off with a quick QA session. I must add today that we're focused on healthcare. It's a real passion for all of us involved here. I used to work for the NHS before moving on to private sector work, and can see some massive opportunities that this technology can bring. But AI in a broader sense has also got a huge amount of potential for businesses across many sectors, including professional services, veterinary, dental care, that type of thing. Jana, I'll pass it over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Mark, for this quick and brief introduction. Thanks for having me here, everyone. So my name is Jana, and I'm leading the DG Solution consultancy firm together with Mark. We work very closely with Hayden and Satish as well in deploying the AI capability, and I'm very excited being with you all here today and share some of the amazing use cases. So over to you, Hayden.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Next slide, please. You're going to hear me say that a few times today. Mark's in control.
I would say, do you want to introduce yourself, Hayden?
Yes, I will, yeah.
And then I was going to say Satish can introduce himself as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. My name's Hayden. I'm a co-founder of a company called Orbital and Vituri. Now, Vituri is a spin-out of a company called Orbital. And and that's really what we're here to talk about today. But Orbital is still relevant to today's conversation because we have a talented team of data scientists and technicians, people like Satish, who'll introduce himself in a minute, who help us define and deliver AI solutions predominantly in healthcare and wellness. Over to you, Satish.
Hello, everyone. I'm Satish Shankapandi, so I work for Vituri and Orbital Media. So I work as a head of data science here. I'm a machine learning researcher by background, predominantly working in health. So I've deployed in various different healthcare settings. So today, we'll be speaking a lot about, some of the deployments we have done and generally healthcare and AI. So very good to, speak to you all.
Thanks for that. So I may as well get started. So what is AI? And in simple terms, AI is a technology that mimics human thinking. I think that's a really simple way of putting it. Probably best for Hayden and Satish to sort of expand on this, as obviously that's clearly their area of expertise. So if you wouldn't mind, Hayden, that'd be great.
Yeah, next slide, please, Mark. Here we go. This is the simplest format of sort of text, if you like, is to explain exactly what it is. But you're absolutely right, Mark. It is using computer technology that allows machines to mimic human thinking and action, essentially. And that's it in a nutshell. But how to visualize it? I'm a creative. I'm quite a sort of visual person, so I need to look at it in pictures. This is the way to think about it. So someone like Satish, as a data scientist, would create an algorithm to solve a particular problem. And if you can imagine it as a baby, it is a brand new baby, but it needs training, and it can be trained very quickly, and ultimately can become Einstein very quickly, depending on how much data you have. So really, AI is driven by the amount of data you have and the quality of that data. That's the way to think about it. But you can go from baby to Einstein relatively quickly based on what the AI is there to do and how much data you have. It is all governed by data. Next slide, please. Okay.
Yeah. So just kind of speak about some of the key purposes of AI we have used on. This is not an exhaustive list, but some of the areas that we have purposed AI. One of the things is, understanding language. Hayden will speak about Vichuri later on in the slides. So trying to understand language, so that's either through voice or through text. So that's some of the things that AI can do very, very well. It's not just limited to English, but also to other languages. So it's basically removes this accessibility barrier. So that's really good. The other thing is recognizing patterns. So when we mean recognizing patterns, is actually going through a bulk of data. To give you an example, one of the study that I was involved earlier on was actually predicting or detecting faults using wearables. So we used to get about 1.7 million data points per day, and from a person, and we just have to churn through all those things and do some predictive analytics. So AI is very good in actually recognizing different things that are happening on, like whether a person is walking, sitting down, whether someone is falling, all sorts of things, and we can use this data to actually predict outcomes, and that's AI is very good at that. And the other thing is learning from experience. I think Hayden just mentioned slightly, it's all about from data. So if you have lots and lots of data, AI can really learn from it. One of the best examples is now we can see ChatGPT. So it's trained on all the data that is available in the web, and it's sort of got a different level of knowledge. It's not a baby anymore. It's got lots of knowledge, and you can start doing asking things. It can instruct many things, and it can provide very accurate and very meaningful responses. So that's another area of AI. And the next thing, I think we all are using Netflix, Facebook, Instagram. So we can use AI to personalize everything. People are very individualized. There's a level of personalization that everyone would like. So my Netflix page would be very, very different to what Hayden's Netflix page would be, or Mark's Netflix page would be. So it's about AI can help to do that in a much more effective, efficient way than to the traditional software systems. The last but not the least thing is the content generation. I think we can see lots of people are using ChatGPT and other large language models to generate content, because it has got all the knowledge from the web, can generate some contents to actually to be seen by other people, but it has to be corrected. But still, gives you a good start. You can get ahead, and you can just start generating lots and lots of content. And also I've just heard about ChatGPT and all large language models. Helping the writer's block. If you're writing something and if you want to know something about it, this can really help. So those are some of the areas that we are using AI for, and there are many more. And I will pass it on to Hayden.
Yeah, thanks. There is a ton more use cases. We're going to we're focusing on healthcare today, and we're just going to talk you through some of the key case studies and use cases. There's just 4. We've got many more to share with you. We could spend hours talking about that on its own. But if you can go to the next slide, please, Mark.
Yeah, of course.
One more. Yep. There we go. We're going to talk to you about four things we've picked out. We've got like I say, got a big library of things to talk about. But this the first one is all around the year of the 150-year-old human. Now, if you can imagine, as we get older, disease causes. We have a deterioration of our cells and exhaustion of the stem cells, which ultimately causes disease, and ultimately we die. Now, if AI, and there's lots of studies happening in this space at the minute, if AI is able to understand your genetic makeup and work to almost rewind time on those cells and recreate those cells, if you like, specific to you, then in theory we can live to 150 years old, which is a scary thought, right? But that is some work going on. There's a lot of ethics to be discussed around this sort of stuff. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, by the way, but the ethics is a massive challenge. We'll talk about challenges in a bit, but there's just one potential use case here of how that works. Next slide, please, Mark.
Just going back to that, this is like the personalized sort of approach to AI, isn't it? Creating personalized content, really, isn't it?
Yeah, personalized content, and understanding your genetic makeup and addressing specific aspects. And there's going to be all sorts of things going on in this space: robotics, 3D printing of hearts, and all sorts of amazing different technologies that are coming into play to ultimately make us live longer and healthier. It's a fascinating space, but it's like I say, it depends on where you stand ethically about that. But it is an interesting space to watch. Okay, so drug creation. There's a company called In Silico Medicine, and actually just a few months ago, we witnessed the very first fully AI discovered, an AI generated drug. Okay, to treat idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which to be honest, I couldn't tell you what it is. I'm not a GP or anything like that, but I can tell you a little bit about the process. And the process was that essentially the product was defined by looking at lots of people with this problem, and essentially created a formula for the drug. Okay, using AI and using predictive analytics and what have you, machine learning, and then ultimately created this particular product, and with its own sort of generated molecular structure, and it's just gone through clinical trials. So it's a kind of starting point. There's going to be a lot more drugs created in this way because of cost and because of the accuracy. And like I say, we're in this sort of era of personalized medicine, which is a huge area. Next slide, please. Satish, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah. So false prevention. This is one of the areas that I have been working for more than a decade. So the slide that shows us, this is one of the technologies that is currently available from VST Alert. So basically, what it does is there's a little hardware system that you actually place it on the walls of the hospitals and also in care homes. That's where people are more prone to falls. And basically, what it does is it's not a camera-based system, but it is a more sort of an infrared-based system, because if you're using camera, then there's lots of privacy issues and stuff like that. So they are using an infrared-based system to actually monitor people's movement. So if someone is trying to get off the bed, or if they're very close to the side of the bed, there's an alert that is sent back to the staff, and they can actually come back and intervene and help people and prevent falls. So it's basically, this device have shown like 70% reduction in falls. This is one of the brilliant examples of how AI can actually help and reduce falls. And we know falls are really a major problem for elderly. So yeah, so that's the VST Alert. And do you want to go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so the other thing that we want to speak about is the predictive analytics. And I think Hayden and Mark was speaking about personalized medicine. So we were involved in one of the studies, European Union study called Horizon. We named it iCare for CVD. It's a heart failure prediction problem, and we are part of the 23 million euro European Union funding. So the idea here is we are going to use routine hospital data from the people and get lots of information from wearables and try and predict the heart failure of a person, and also predict the treatment response. So there are various ways that we can actually provide treatments, but we can by actually predicting by using the hospital data and also wearable data, we can individualize the treatment. And then, so that we are actually maximizing the treatment response on the person. So that's the whole study. It runs for about 4 years, and there's about 12 or 15 different partners across the Europe. And we are using close to 1 million data points, or 1 million data from the users, and trying to create 3 or 4 different models, like AI models, to predict this exactly, what is going to happen when someone is having a heart failure and what sort of treatment we have to provide. So amazing. That's about it. Next slide, please. So
Vituri. So Vituri's really why we're here today, but hopefully we're giving you a bit of an idea of what else is available in the market, what things are being developed. So you want to give us a bit of a rundown on Venturi, Hayden and Satish, and sort of what it can do and what it's designed for?
Sure, yeah. If I start with a little history here. So 6 or 7 years ago, we set out, we had an idea where we wanted to deliver really cost-effective information at scale and consistently. Ultimately, back in 5 or 6 years ago, there was a lot of press around the pressure on GPs and the fact they simply couldn't cope. So we wanted to take. We initially started looking at that market and coming up with a solution that people could who've perhaps got either learning difficulties or found it much easier. 65% of us are visual learners, for instance. That's to target those 65% of the population who understand visuals far more effectively to ultimately teach them how to manage their minor ailments. That's what it started as. The project moved on massively. We completed 2 knowledge transfer partnerships, and Ultima and Satish really built the technology, which is Mark. That'd be great.
You cut out a little bit there, Hayden.
We lost you there, Hayden.
I think Hayden's lost. Satish, you want to fill in there?
Yeah. So I think what Hayden was saying is,
can you move on to the next page, please? Thanks.
Hayden, you've frozen a bit.
We lost you, Hayden. So what Hayden was saying there was, just giving a little bit of background to Venturi. So Venturi started before 7 years, where we are trying to provide information on minor ailments to people using videos. So basically, there's a library of videos if they want to know about minor ailments and self-help. Basically, they can just go search for the library of videos, and then they can get an information about it. What really was a big problem was the scalability, because we couldn't scale that. And then that's when I came in. So there were like 2 knowledge transfer partnership between ESX and also with University of Cardiff. And there's more than £1 million or more than that, that was invested or granted to us to develop this technology, and that's how Venturi was built. So Venturi aims to actually bring down accessibility issue and also provide information in a much more visual, engaging way using hyper-realistic avatar. So there's a couple of components of Venturi. One is a machine learning component trying to understand the language, which I was mentioning earlier. So it tries to understand the language. The other thing is the visual element, which is the avatar itself. So it's a combination of those 2. The major purpose of Venturi is to actually improve healthcare outcomes, because people don't understand health-related information as much as they must do. So adherence to information or health-related information is a major problem. You can see from various different places. Like one of the examples that we usually say is asthma inhaler. So more than 95% of people misuse inhaler. The top one being they're not removing the cap of the inhaler. So it's just the awareness of what happens when you actually don't follow what was given, the medical advice. If you don't follow the medical advice, there's some serious complications. And that has been the story that we hear from. We work with lots of GPs and lots of cardiovascular specialists across the world, and all the thing that we are seeing is people don't adhere, or they don't actually listen to the advice that we are providing. And that's where Venturi is coming up, and it's trying to solve that very problem of trying to make the information accessible and also much more engaging, so that the people are absorbing the information and following it. So that's where Venturi is born. The next slide, please, Mark.
Thank you.
Hey,
so, do you want to run through a couple of the chat? So there's quite a few challenges around healthcare that Venturi is sort of addressing. Hayden, do you want to sort of run through some of the key ones? You're back now.
I'm back.
Good.
Hopefully it's all right. Okay, so yes, Venturi, ultimately we've run this pathway, and we're finding out a lot as we're going along. However, what is really interesting is that the interest we have in Vituri, certainly from the NHS perspective, is addressing inequality in healthcare, which is a massive issue right now. You might have heard of something called Core 20, and to be honest, Vituri is being touted as a very strong means of addressing that, because we can represent essentially any ethnicity and can speak over 120 languages at scale. So suddenly you could talk to the ethnic minorities and reflect their cultures and interests and what have you, very cost effectively. So yeah, we've also got to bear in mind that healthcare inequality is not necessarily just about ethnic minorities. It's also about the average literacy age in the UK being age 9, which I totally agree, quite shocking. And the fact that 11% of households remain digitally excluded, which again is another shocking fact there. But yeah, so healthcare inequality is a massive problem we're solving. Next slide, please, Mark. Net zero, there's obviously, I'm sure we've all heard of the big push in relation to reducing our carbon emissions in the NHS, and the NHS is 40% or 40% of total carbon emissions comes to the NHS, which again is quite shocking. So there is a big push within the sphere to reduce that, and again, Vituri can do that by digitalizing information and ultimately reducing the amount, the requirement for people to travel to get health information. So there's two things we're kind of targeting there. Okay, next slide, please. And reducing the cost of healthcare. There are other aspects too, but we know that the NHS costs 191 billion every year, and that we've got a massive GDP on health, 9.9%. And just another quick stat there: £42 is the average cost of a GP appointment. If we can reduce that by, again, perhaps targeting the less required GP appointments for things that really could end up in a pharmacy, for instance, rather than go to a GP appointment, then we can save money very quickly and prove that. And that's exactly what we're doing right now in some of our case studies we'll get to in a minute.
So it helps free up the resource for the GPs, doesn't it? Actually, they can spend their time on where they're really needed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about freeing. It's not. You hear about the argument about AI taking jobs and what have you. It's not. Certainly not in this space. It's allowing us to focus, it's taking the heavy lifting off the frontline staff and allowing them to focus on the patients that really need it.
Yeah,
that's the way to look at it. Okay, next slide.
So
right.
What I have done, I have tested this morning, but being Zoom and having all sorts of internet issues, I'm not sure. Can you hear this?
No,
you can't hear it. I did test it this morning separately. So just so you're aware, Vituri is the avatar, digital avatar here. She's currently speaking in multiple languages and delivering some sort of simple information. Hayden, Satish is your product, so you can explain a bit more about it. I do apologize. I did test it. It seemed to work. But...
So essentially, we can reflect any ethnicity and gender and age and what have you. The way it works is we would typically find that human. Okay, so if you said we need a Somali female age 40, we would find that human. Essentially, we would create an avatar from that person. We can then, using synthetic voices, have them speaking over 120 languages. There is a part human element in this. It's not all AI, because AI certainly can't be trusted to do translation. And this is one of the biggest questions normally around Vituri. We don't rely on AI translations because you can't in healthcare. Even the best translation tools are only 80% correct. So we use a hybrid methodology to help do the initial translation with AI, so it saves a lot of time and money, and ultimately have it checked over and addressed and tweaked by a professional clinician who is native to that language. It's a text-to-speech technology, so essentially we're given a lot of the use cases we'll talk about in a sec. We're given reams and reams of text, which we then turn into avatar sequences. and then we can do all sorts of funky post-production things with that to make it look fantastic, to have little pictures popping over the shoulder so we can explain things really very easily, and we can integrate this technology into almost any platform. And the way it works is we would create an MP4 style response from an avatar, and we can either build it into our own kind of conversational AI platform, if you like. So it's almost like a chatbot, if you like, but with responses with visual responses. Or you take an MP4, put it onto YouTube and or Vimeo, something like that, and can address it that way. But if you could jump to the next slide, Mark, I think it's probably best time to walk through some of the case studies, recent ones. And these are the businesses really generating some pace now. The solution is we got funded at the beginning of the year, and that's really opened up all sorts of opportunities with the likes of NHS England and many trusts who are seeing this as a first validating it, which is really important to do. And that's there's a lot of projects underway that are being including validation projects involving validation. So this one here, NHS England, we got launched about a week ago only, and it's aimed at we're targeting 5 different languages. We're aiming at the core 20. Remember what I was just talking about a minute ago, the focus of the 20% of the population that perhaps require the most amount of education in healthcare, if you like, or deprived communities and what have you. And we are focusing on teaching people about the importance of getting boosted. Okay, so we have a specific audience, and again, this is under validation right now. It's being reviewed by the Equalities Commission within the NHS. So we don't have masses of results as yet, but so far it's been really been very, very positive. So next slide, please. This is a case study with Mid Yorkshire Hospital Trust, where the lady you can see in the picture, Dr. Linos Jones, she saw she in order to go out and explain how to manage asthma, she typically have to go for ethnic minorities, have to go to a place of worship and like a mosque, and she'd have to bring interpreters with her and have to explain what an inhaler was, what asthma was, what have you. And it was costing so many thousands of pounds every time she was going out. In fact, and that's not the only cost. The other cost was obviously people who didn't understand how to manage asthma were costing the NHS a lot of money. And one particular patient last year ended up costing £70,000 because she kept on getting readmitted because she couldn't necessarily understand or comprehend. I don't know the difficulties there, but it was a very expensive process for the NHS. So we looked at a solution where we produced 6 different videos, 15 different languages, and it came to about £5,000 or £6,000. It's sort of minimal, really, to do that piece of work and have it professionally translated. And then it was shared on, or it's then given. It was getting given to all the GPs in the area, who then passed it on to their patients. Essentially, it's been a huge success. You see this little poster here with lots of QR codes on. You literally just sort of QR code the language you're interested in, and you get the information you want to that is relevant to you. But it's a growing project, and it was one of our first. We're very proud of this one. So on to the next one, please. This is a case study around a brand. If you've got kids and they've had colic, you probably have seen Infocol or heard of it. But Infocol is a product that alleviates infant colic. And infant colic strikes between the ages of sort of 1 day and 3 months, I believe, or maybe 4 months. And we used to manage, or we still manage, the brand's website. We were seeing 6 or 7 years ago, a big issue with people arriving on the site in the middle of the night, trying to find answers to how to alleviate colic, because it's a horrible thing to go through, essentially, and the child is screaming. It's very stressful. And we looked at this data, and this is really where the idea for Venturi came through, because we looked at the data and we thought, well, what can we do? How can we help people understand what colic is, and that it is just colic, or if it's something else, perhaps send them down another route, and how to alleviate it. So essentially, we put on we launched something called the Virtual Colic Clinic, which was our first iteration of Venturi, and it was a huge success. We won lots of awards for it. And we've developed it into this process now, which is almost works like a chatbot type system. And it's what we call conversational AI. So you can have a conversation with Anya, who is pictured there, and you can ask her a question about colic. And if you ask her about something totally different, she'll say, sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. Please ask me again. So it's not a ChatGPT style project. It is literally we have a database on the back end. So it's what we call a walled garden of information, which is really important, because you wouldn't want information, or you wouldn't want to serve up information that was sourced from anywhere else apart from this walled garden, which is protected, if you like. But it's been a fantastic process. So the next slide, please, Mark. And one of our latest projects is with Bradford District Care. It's all around respiratory disease, and this is a really exciting project where we are again addressing ethnic minorities in the community and helping them understand how to stay healthy. The project is under validation at the minute. We don't have huge amounts of data, but again, we've got some very, very exciting responses back. And we always know it's exciting because there's talk of doing lots more of it, and that's a really good sign. So yeah, it's great. And I think let's say next slide, please. Here we go.
I think where we've got to with this is, and Hayden just mentioned the walled garden, which has quite a large impact on what Satish will probably cover off now around regulation, ethics, compliance, especially in healthcare. So Satish, you want to sort of run through this, please?
Yeah, so far we have seen the potential of AI, and it's all been very, very good. But on the flip side, there's lots of challenges that we face with AI. So the first thing is we all know that AI, the food for AI is data. So if the data is biased or the data is corrupted, that's what the machine learning system will learn as well. So that's very, very important. Garbage in, garbage out. So when you're actually with large language models, you could have seen this. Sometimes some of the sentences or some of the paragraphs it makes no sense at all. Is because that's how because it has trained from the data all around the web. And the website in the web or internet has lots of nonsense and lots of craps. So it's just trying to get that information and trying to learn, and that's where it goes wrong. Say for an example, in healthcare, this is a big problem. Say you are leaving ChatGPT to actually answer your question. It's a health advice that you want, and you want the ChatGPT to answer it. You have no control as to what output it's going to provide. So that's a big issue. So it's basically generating answers for you, and it's not picking from somewhere else, but it's just trying to generate answers. And sometimes it can generate answers which can look very, very good. So that's where we could fall apart. So that's the reason how we overcame that was we had a walled garden of information, and we wouldn't let any information, or we wouldn't let our system to generate answers, and just always pull information from that very own walled garden. And the other thing that we've also got is with healthcare, trust is an important element. So if someone is giving you information, it has to be trustworthy. If not, you won't take it. So again, it's a problem of adhering to medical advice. So what we have done is we have added explainability into it. So whenever we show an answer, we propose an answer, there's a bit of element in the bottom that says where the answer is coming from, so we can exactly see where it is coming from. And it's also we have to make sure that it is not generating, it's only from the walled garden. So that's a big issue. So in terms of bias, any AI system, they have to they have to spend lots of time in understanding the data, because with the growing language models, like growing AI models like ChatGPT or Diffusion or whatever, these models are really, really big, the number of parameters we have is about 20 billion. And I mean parameters, what all you can think of as like little LEDs which switches on and off. Whether it's on and off, that's all you have to remember in your head. So you have 20 billion of that. So if you want to understand or explain how that model is working on, is very, very difficult to explain. It's because you give an input, you're seeing an output. If you want to understand why for the given input, why you have got an output, it's very difficult. You have to go through all this 20 billion of these LEDs that I just mentioned. So it's impossible. So you have to spend more time in actually understanding the data and then sending into the model. So that's where we need some ethical framework that'll just guide people as to how exactly we have to have the data clean, processed before sending into the model. So that's one main issue. There's lots of work going on, lots of PhD, lots of people are doing PhDs as to what this should be. And the next thing, whenever we speak about AI, is people speak about job displacement. It's not, the AI is not going to displace or replace everyone who's doing that job, but it's just you just have to be. It's just going to take all the repetitive work so that it'll allow people to be much more creative, innovative, and just become they can do lots more interesting work. Like for a GP, they can just if it's just a minor ailment, we can just let Vechuri or some other system to answer it. That frees up their time, and then go and attend to a more complex situations where the care is essential or needed the most. So that's where that's where the job displacement area is like. So it's not gonna replace everyone. Yeah, it's not gonna replace everyone. That's the story there. In terms of technical challenges that we face with AI, so whenever we speak about healthcare systems, it's all it's dispersed. It's all dispersed everywhere. So if you want to know a proper understanding of someone to give individualized treatment, we need to get a full picture of it. So my data set, the healthcare information about myself is everywhere. So NHS has some, maybe my GP have some. I have wearables, so it has some. I do, my physical or lifestyle as to how much I'm walking, how sedentary or how active my lifestyle is. It's all related. If I have to predict something that's going to happen in the future, diagnose early, intervene, and try and change the course, we need to have all this data set in a centralized place. And how are we going to do this? Because there's lots of challenges, especially in terms of actually GDPR, anonymization of data, how things can actually, how interoperable these data are. There are some standards like HS7, HL7, and all those things, but still, there's quite big challenges there. There's no clear framework or process as to how this data has to be integrated and brought into a centralized place, so that machine learning systems or any other system can actually feed into that and make some prediction that will actually help people. So that's another challenge there. The other thing is also like it goes back to the data. So all I was saying is data is crucial, and machine learning systems don't understand whether it's a good data or bad data. So it just knows its data. So some of the systems we have online or self-learning systems will always keep learning. So say for an example, you can go there and actually corrupt it by sending wrong data sets. So, and that's a difficulty in there, because it won't understand whether that's a good data or bad data, and then you can just completely corrupt it. The best example for you is like you have your Facebook or something, like you click on things that you dislike the most. If you just keep clicking on it for a day or so, all you see is that those videos that you dislike. So we have to be very careful. In terms of health, this is a lot more of an issue. If someone goes in and tries to inject or a bulk of data which is incorrect, it's gonna cause lots of problems in prediction, because it could predict things very, very differently to before as to how it was trained. So how do we fence that off? This is a major challenge here. And there's lots of models. There's some classifiers to say, okay, this is right data, this is good data, this is bad data. But no machine learning system or no system is 100% right. So there will be some leaks that will actually go in. It will penetrate into the system and they'll corrupt the whole thing. So that's something that everyone is facing currently. So the other thing is, a threat to human life. That's what they say. Will AI take over human? That's a big question, but the simple answer is no. It won't take, or it's not that smart. As far as I know, I understand, it's not that smart. It is not, but maybe it can happen in 10-15 years. So we need to regulate AI for various different reasons. It's not just because it's not allowing you to take over the human, but also especially in healthcare domain, as to where do we fence it off, saying that okay, that is really a wrong information that is provided. Is there any ways? So we looked into data. So now we are looking into the other side of spectrum, the outputs. So how do we actually say that is a proper information, or whether that is a misinformation or disinformation that is coming from that model? So we need to have a regulation as to how we build these AI models. We don't know how we are going to do it at. Britain or UK is on the take that we still don't understand AI models completely, and we still have to wait for it. So I think the AI summit is going to happen on regulation next week in Birmingham, I believe. But EU has a different take on it. EU are actually coming up with EU AI Act. It's going to be released in December or January time. So we have to see it. It's going to be very interesting because it's very difficult to regulate something that you don't understand. Which is what my feelings as well. But maybe they'll just come up with some basic guidelines as to what should be done, what shouldn't be done. It'll be an interesting read. So that's another thing. The last bit is the global issue. So if you keep data in silos, it's not going to be helpful. You have to bring all these disparate data sets into one central place. It has to be safely and securely kept. So one of the things that we are doing in the iCare for CVD, the heart failure project that we have mentioned, was keeping that in blockchains and federated database. It means the data doesn't leave it. You can't put data, like you can't corrupt it, basically. So we are just, there are like things that we can do to fence it off. We are trying to do that. So how do we bring all these things together to make much more effective and efficient prediction for people to what Hen was saying, to live for 150 years or more, to become immortal, basically. So those are the challenges we currently face with AI. And these are the major challenges, I would say. There are like other things with AI, but I think we think we have summarized some of the major challenges we face currently. Thank you. Leave to Mark.
Thank you, Satish. That's really useful. I think most of these issues span across industries. So whether that be financial services, legal, all similar challenges around regulation, compliance, how it's used. I think it's quite interesting what you said about the data. I've heard quite a few stories now about some of the larger language models being polluted by incorrect information. So I think it's understanding how that works. That's why I quite like what we're trying to do with Vituri when we're talking to our customers, is we can wall it, we can protect that data and make sure it's specific, very specific to their business. So no, thanks for that. We've got a short Q&A session. If you've got any questions, if you pop it in the chat, and then Hayden, Satish, Yana and I will do our best to answer them.
So I guess my question is on Satish, just so because what you were mentioning right now was around this collaboration, right? Like a global collaboration about that data, because it's not good to have data that is completely kind of siloed. So how do you see that to be done? Because that's very tricky, right? Because everyone has a viewpoint, everyone. How is it to not to be so biased in that?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think first of all, it has to start locally before we are actually moving into internationally. We just have to understand how the data set is actually kept in various different places. So everyone tries to keep it in their own way, but I think that's where the regulation or the framework has to come through and say that okay, this is the framework, that this is how you have to hold the data. And if someone is asking for the data, this is how you actually release the data in a safe and secured manner. So I think that is where the government or regulation should come in to say that, okay, this is how you keep it, store it, save, and this is how you release it. And once you do it locally, we can just expand it. once it becomes international, then it becomes a little bit of a political discussion as well as to whether they should release the data, because that's a different story. But just purely technical, or as to how to do this, you just have to have a framework as to how to keep it, how to release it, so that you have a harmonized data storage and data distribution. So that's where the harmonization has to come up. So, and becomes easy for every little computer system that it wants to interact. It knows, okay, that's the format it has to be. I'll just start pulling the data straight through.
Thank you.
So, Satish, a quick question someone's popped in. In terms of, you've mentioned integration and systems talking. So I just asked the question, how easy would it be to integrate into their system when they're booking patients in? So if someone's booking a patient in for a piece of treatment, can they do like a post-treatment, pre-treatment sort of follow-up? Is that easy enough to do?
Yeah, I mean, we can easily do it, because so if you have a centralized system, like an NHS number or whatever, so if you have a centralized system and it is connected across, at least I'm just saying across Suffolk or across England, or at least the UK, wherever you go through with the NHS number, you can see exactly what was written up. So if I see a GP, if he's writing up a notes, it has to be seen by a specialist. If I have some other problem that this has raised, there was some initial triggers, the earlier stage, and I can see from the doctor's notes, GP's note, that this has occurred in earlier stages. So I think with pre and post also, some people before going into a surgery, they do certain things, like lifestyle and things like that. And after surgery, usually they give very minimal information, and then they just let people go. But I think, and they go and do various different things. If we can actually collect data to see what is really happening after the post operation or post surgery, then we can actually help them to actually manage their condition, or after post, or recover quicker, I would say. So yeah, so if you try and keep it in a centralized place, and then we have to have some technology such as blockchain or federation to make sure it is secured. Because if you're trying to keep it in a centralized place, it means you can easily hack it if people try and hack it, because that's where all the data is. Like, so how do you keep it secure in a blockchain or a federated way? And even though someone is trying to hack it, it's all anonymized and people won't know it, basically, even though they pull the data through. So trying to keep that will actually help pre and post, or in any way. You want to know about what happened before 20 years or 30 years. People can still see it.
That's really interesting.
I have another questions. So Hayden and Satish, again, this is technology. It's so exciting, and we're working with you. We're working on different use cases. So today we are specifically focused more on the healthcare, but actually you can take that technology and adapt it to different industries and to different clients, right? So I guess my question is, like, how should the customer start when they're thinking about their AI strategy? Should they start to look through improve their client services, or should they start to look to improve their internal processes? So how should they navigate through this?
With the client, or whether they should improve the existing, it depends on their priority, basically. So it's to see whether they have to improve their internal process first before they actually go into the client. So it's their own priority, to be honest. So if the client is looking to do something externally, then I think the best thing to understand is, okay, I want to do some changes to whatever I'm currently doing with an AI, and how can we do that? So that's the first question they can ask, and maybe just talk to people like us, trying to understand, okay, I have been doing this in this traditional way. Can AI make it any better? See, one thing that we all have to understand is we shouldn't be using AI to places where AI is not really necessary. So that's not AI is not solution for everything. Sometimes it's easier to, it's better and efficient to use other systems like traditional software systems or some other system. So we just have to assess whether AI is needed for that to solve the problem, first of all. And then then go from there. So if it is really needed, then we can actually think about how AI can come and help them.
Yeah.
So
it sort of starts with looking at all the contact points, whether they be with suppliers, with customers, and just basically talking about understanding the challenges within those communication, those touch points, and seeing whether, or speaking to people like Satish and myself, who can then help define whether you need AI or whether you need another solution. As Satish says, you don't need it for everything. In fact, there's far cheaper solutions sometimes than deploying AI. I mean, the thing about deploying AI is it's not like a website. You don't just create it and let it sit there. It's got to constantly move on. So it is a commitment. It's a financial commitment. But then if there is a valid use case, and it's going to save you millions of pounds a year, then absolutely, should be taken very seriously. But start by looking at those contact points. Like I say, talking to setting what the challenges are in those contact points, and then seeing if there is another solution. I mean, that's obviously, you've seen just for Churi today. We've talked about some other use cases. There's so many deployments for AI that it's we just thinking about it from an avatar perspective. There's so far, what goes far wider than that, and therefore so many other opportunities for it. And it's moving on all the time. It's the fastest developing, it's the fastest technical solution market I've ever seen moving. And just to answer your question, Arturo, then essentially you're talking about what are the challenges we're seeing apart from ethics, technical, and regulation, is just the speed of travel of the markets, and understanding. Satish reads countless papers all the time, every day, and people, data scientists are constantly moving the goalposts, and to try and keep ahead of that and to understand all of that and then look at how you can better that, it must be for Satish. He probably doesn't get a lot of sleep, to be fair. But that's keeping a competitive advantage. I don't know if you're asking in relation to our own business in terms of a challenge, but keeping competitive advantage is one big thing. And again, that you could look at that, relay that onto another company, and maybe a company that we're deploying a piece of AI for. There's always someone looking over your shoulder, as there is with anything. But first mover advantage, and as long as you've got a strategy in place to keep monitoring and improving on that deployment, then you're in a really good place. And it does add a lot of value. It's worth noting.
Thank you for that. That's exactly what Arturo meant. So yeah, that's great.
Perfect.
Thank you. Is any other questions from anybody? Well, I think we've probably sort of come to the end of the session here, which I think has been really useful. So just a thank you for everybody for taking the time to join us for this webinar, discussing this, looking at Venturi, looking at some other cases for AI in healthcare. A big thank you to Hayden and Satish for taking the time out of their day to do this for us. We started working with the guys here, and it's been really, really exciting and really interesting. So no, thank you for giving your time up today to do this. What I'd like to do is, and I'll follow up with everybody afterwards, is just get a bit of feedback on if this sort of session is useful, if the subject matter is good, because it's the first time we've done this, so Jana and I are novices on this one from a DG Solutions point of view, so we'd like to sort of get some feedback. Was it useful? Is there anything we do better? And is this the sort of type of topic you'd like to talk about? So yeah. I think with that, we'll call it a day. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.